Hi there, and welcome to the latest edition of the Wyld Morris Video Show, which we've been publishing this year as it's our 10th anniversary. And I'm pleased to say that today I've got Ruth with me. Ruth's a founder member of Wyld Morris and is also very interested in the kits. So I'm fascinated by this. So Ruth's going to tell us all about the history and evolution of our kit. So Ruth, let's go straight into it. Tell us about the wonderful kit you've got behind you.
Well, our kit changed dramatically during lockdown. It changed in a way that I think will change the face of Wyld Morris forever, in that we now have these wonderful waistcoats. In fact, I've made 18 during lockdown, 18 waistcoats. I can't believe it. There we are. You're wearing yours. And we wear them on top of our baldricks. And we've got our lovely white tops on. And this idea came about several years ago. It came up at several AGMs, but it didn't really happen until lockdown in 2020. I'd already resourced a pattern. It's a vintage pattern, a vintage waistcoat pattern, which I had to buy from America. And it caused me great pain because it took about 6-7 weeks before it arrived. Every place that it went to, it was held in quarantine, I think, for a few weeks. In London, Heathrow, it was quarantined for about 3 weeks there before it arrived here. But anyway, once I got my hands on it, and with Vicky's guidance, we sort of together, more or less, chosen this beautiful fabric, which we got off a garden from the market stall. I made 2 waistcoats, one for myself and one for John. And in order to not waste the whole of the pattern and cut it up for myself, so I couldn't then make any for anybody else, I had to replicate those patterns. And here's the sort of template, I don't know if we can see it, that I made for my John. Can you see that?
Yes, that's fine.
Yeah, I had to put in extra pieces because it was longer, it was naturally wider. I ended up making, for the 18 waistcoats, probably about 5 templates. And that material that you saw there was part of something that Vicky and her husband were using to reline a new roof that they were having on their house. So that roofing lining came in very usefully.
Oh, wow. I didn't know about that. That's fascinating.
No, I know, it's absolutely amazing. So
you've made 18 waistcoats. That must have taken quite some time.
Well, we are now in March, nearly April, and I started 2 in August. So I think by Christmas I'd probably done about 14. Yeah, but I'm very, very pleased with them. Everybody seems delighted. The other thing I did during lockdown to change the way we might look eventually once we're allowed, I've also made hankies of our Morris colours.
Oh, I've not seen those. Those. They're really
orange, 8 yellow.
Wow.
And 8 green. And in fact, the first week of lockdown, before Livingstone Textiles closed their doors, I went in and bought all this material, enough to make, how many was it? 8 of each. Wait a minute, 3, I think it was 4 pairs, that's right, 4 pairs of green, 4 pairs of yellow and 4 of orange. So that's how we will now be looking when we dance out.
So that's really interesting. So we're all ready for our first public performance of our 10th anniversary year. I think we've got a couple of practices that we'll have to get back up to remember how the dances go and to get fit again. But we're obviously hoping to do a bit of dancing out in the summer. So that's great. I'd like to ask a question, if I may, about the history of our kit. So
yes.
Let me just show you this photo. These were a couple of photos that you sent to me just recently, and I think this was one from us dancing on the 1st of May in 2013. And I think it's outside the 5 Bells in Whitchurch, Canonicorum. I think it's the breakfast slot. So and at the back there on the left and far left, I think that's you. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct. And look, I've changed my hat.
I spotted. So if we just go back a couple of months. So that was May 2013. And then in August 2013, here we are at the Charmouth Fair, and we've got different kids. So
Yeah.
do you remember what happened when we went from the blue jeans to these just in a couple of months? So could you tell us something about the history of that?
Well, I can tell you something about the history, and it will eventually tie in with what you've just asked me to explain. But, you know, if I can go right back to the beginning, I joined Wyld Morris in 2010. And we were wearing jeans, as you quite rightly say, until 2013. But if I go back now from 2010 to 2011, it was in April 2011 that Bryony was the only one in the group who actually had a pair of hankies, white hankies. And so she sort of said, could you make hankies? Or I can't remember if she asked me or I said I would make it. Anyway, she gave me some sheets that she no longer needed, and I made her 8 pairs of white hankies. That was in 2011 in April. By June 2011, so a few months later, Vince had found something that the chaps could wear that was a bit like the shirt that I've got. He suggested that the men could wear a collarless rounded shirt. He gave us a website, an eBay website, and John, my husband, bought one of those. And I trawled the shops in Bridport and I got myself this one. This is my original top with a round collar from 2011. I do wear other shirts too. Then in 2011, July, so moving on a few more months, Bryony had a sewing evening at which John and I couldn't attend. In those days, I was working quite a lot in London and in Reading. And she had a sewing evening to make baldricks, which are these baldricks, plus bells. So we, bells for the arms, for the wrists rather, and then these bells for your knees.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, later on, about a month later, it was Vince's idea to make this rosette, which he called the Wyld Flower, which we wear on the front, and then we can also have one, I believe, on the back.
Yeah.
So that's Vince's idea. He was the designer of that. Where do we go to next? Number 4, number 5. Hold on. Yeah. Now, if we then move forward to your question, I think the reason we changed kit dramatically from jeans to the brown trousers was because somebody might have made a remark that we were not actually wearing proper kit, wearing jeans. Although I have to say, I really like the jeans. I think white and blue is quite a good contrast. Anyway, so we moved away from the blue jeans to the beige. But of course, there are many different shades of beige, just as there are many shades of blue. So what happened next? Did you want to ask any more questions, or shall I just?
No, that's fine. If you carry on, that's great. That's great.
Yeah, because we don't want to take too long over this. Well, I've got off my emails that after the AGM that we had in 2017, there was a little article or a little some minutes about the kit. Fiona at the time reported that some slight changes might be needed because the gold braid, I think she meant the yellow one here, for baldricks was no longer available at Livingstone's, because we bought all this material at Livingstone's. And she also suggested that we might later on, because we couldn't do it at that AGM meeting, perhaps decide on whether there should be colour changes, what changes we might need. Perhaps some people might want to wear skirts, that sort of thing. And Vicky also asked us to consider varied hanky colours, which we obviously now have, but that was 2017 September. She said it would be a good way that individual dancers could be tracked through the dances. I think that's a pretty good idea. And Roger, in those days, suggested that waistcoats looked good, and we could also therefore incorporate a degree of personalization. And it was, yeah, And it was Jane who mentioned to us a good website for bells, because we were hoping one day to have bell pads. Now, you lent me during lockdown your bell pads.
These ones here, can you see those?
These ones there.
No, sorry.
And I'd like to show you something.
Not really coming up.
I found in my garage an old leather bag.
Oh, right.
Which I've now cut apart. Well, I've taken it away at the seams. And I'm going to be making, John and I, 2 bell pads.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah, so I've got the leather. I've got some bells. These aren't the right bells, but I got these in the art and craft shop in Bridport. So hopefully we might be making bell pads at some point. Anyway, from September 2017, Vicky became our squire. And in 2018, in early 2018, the idea of skirts was mooted. The idea of skirts was mooted. But if I can take us back to April of 2017, in those days, it was Laura Cox who mentioned that tatters jackets.
Yeah.
That tatters jackets don't need to be made from scratch. We just need to find ourselves a shirt that is bigger than what we would normally wear. And it was Vicky's ingenuity to come around and help people to make their tatters jackets. She bought double-sided tape, and she came around to my home and she showed me how we could stick this in this double-sided tape and then add the strips of material that we see. Some material we bought and others we just chopped up other things that we had at home. So that's how, in a way, the tatters jackets came about. They didn't come about until early 2018. And I saw an email from Margie who wanted to know something about Vince's size, because she made Vince's tatter jacket in about April 2018. So that's interesting. So the tatters jackets have not been with us that long. And Brian, you recently showed us your new tatters jacket.
That's right, which Fiona made for me. And she gave it to me, I think it was at the AGM in when it was that 2019, December 2000. I can't remember which year it was now. But I've never really worn it out in anger because we've not really done the border dances. So it was all lockdown shortly after I got my tatters jacket. But we have done a bit of dancing. So I think if we just, I'd just like to, if you can make some comments on this. So this was us, there's you up at the front. This was us dancing outside Bridport Antiques in last October or December time. It was one of the new socially distanced dances that we'd learned, where there were only 4 or 5 dancers and 1 musician. So can you just talk us through the kit that we've got so we can see it all? And there's a bit of a variety in what the dancers are wearing.
There is a bit of variety. And I think what we've decided now that we've got our waistcoats is that you can see on that photograph that I've got a lot of badges that I've collected over the last few years from the Bridport Folk Festival and other festivals that we've been to. And it was my thought that that now began to look very cluttered. The simple look that we had in 2011 seemed a much nicer look. I didn't like the way those baldricks were so cluttered. So I've taken everything off again, because they can now sit on hats or they can sit on a jacket. And we now see Karen, who joined us not too long ago. She's one of our newest dancers, and she's wearing a skirt, and that looks really nice. So we've got the difference between beige trousers, beige skirts, and you'll see that, you know, over the time period, I've got lots of different hats. This hat, Vicky, once she was squire, she seemed to have an awful lot of hats in her basement. And she farmed out all these hats to us, and you can see mine is now, it's a little bit weathered and is worn out.
Yes. And we've also got that nice logo that we use, which I hadn't realized it was originally Vince's idea, and then Helen created the logo and has updated the logo for our 10th anniversary. So that's a
Yeah, that's
really nice
brilliant.
colour scheme, isn't it?
It's a really nice color scheme, and it's really nice that she's incorporated something that Vince has done. I think that's, you know, the more I am with Wyld Morris, the more I think what a great team of people we've got. So many people with their different expertises. And by the way, I didn't realize until I saw an email from Vince that the person who makes kit is actually called the Rag Man.
Right.
I've never thought of myself as a rag man. Let's hope I'm not a bone and rag man.
Very good, very good. So thanks for that, Ruth. And the photo that's in my background just there, that was us dancing at the Wassail Do, and that was just over a year ago, a year and two or 3 months ago. And do you remember that event when it was a really bright sunny day? I think we had about 9 people who were dancing there. I think Karen made her debut at that event, and we also had about 3 or 4 people, musicians as well, because we've had a number of new musicians have joined in the past year or so as well. So that's really great. So many thanks for that talk and for that history. It's been really great. So
hope it wasn't too boring.
It was fascinating. So thank you, Ruth. And to be honest, it was so good. I'm hoping to invite you back to the show and you could tell us a bit more about the history of the team, and also maybe about the music and the band, because I think you've also got a bit of interest in the musical side of things as well, haven't you, Ruth?
I might have. Well,
Okay.
thank you very much for asking me. And you know, as ever, Wyld Morris is a very good side to be in. It's full of fun and enthusiasm. So if anybody out there is interested, contact whom?
Contact the details given on the slide. So we have
on the slide. Perfect. Yeah, absolutely perfect. Thank you very much, Brian.
Thank you, Ruth.